This is Dr. Monica, and I am here with Dante Pitts. He's one of our M4 Summit speakers. And if you notice the last name, you may recognize that from the T4 Summit. And his wife spoke. And you guys heard how she spoke. She was very real. She's a little small lady. I happened to meet her when I went to Texas, where Dante and Melinda are from. They have 6 children, a set of triplets, 2 with autism. And Melinda spoke about her anxiety and depression. So we have Dante that's going to talk about his experience at the summit. So hello, Dante. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I am going to talk about 2 things because I heard you talk about some things. And, first I want to say, a couple of days ago, I said, God, why was I given this vision to do the M4 Summit? Why me? I'm a woman. I didn't grow up with positive male figures. I don't really have positive male figures around. I don't think negative of men. I take bits and pieces of what's positive from each person. I don't have any mentors or role models to speak because I don't see that anybody fits that bill. But I see pieces of people. And so I don't know why. And I said, because I grew up in Christianity and I'm, still struggling with some of my own beliefs and upbringings because of the hurt that I've experienced. So I'm not going to say God gave me the visions, but I'm going to say God gave me the vision because it came up for me. But I do want to touch on 2 things that you said: discipline about children and also autism. I want to share my experience. You talked about disciplining children and being, spanking, and you saw that when you raise your hands, your children, one of your children actually, became fearful. I had an experience like that as well. My pediatrician told me, I have one child. My pediatrician told me never to spank my child or a child with the hand because when you raise them, they'll be afraid of it. So it just brought those memories back. Right. She told me to use something else. So I spank with a plastic spoon. And what I noticed one day is I went to pick up this plastic spoon to cook with. And my daughter went, and I go, I don't want her to be afraid. And guess what? I stopped spanking from that day. I use a different parenting method or discipline method. So you talked about that. Tell me a little bit about that just a tad bit to get.
Yeah, not a problem. So I grew up in a household, spedderized for the child, and my mom, there was no shortage of belt switches and everything else in between. So, and naturally when I became a parent myself, we calling that, it was like, okay, I'm gonna use a belt, switch, hand, whatever. And that's just to always reinforce, I understand the principles of spanking is to reinforce that, hey, this is a bad behavior. You shouldn't do this. But at the same time, like, especially if you're using your hand, or if you're using a belt, or if you're using like a plastic spoon in your case, they're going to start associating fear with that object that you're disciplining them with, as opposed to potentially just learning the lesson that you're trying to teach them. So one of the things that we, my wife and I started doing was not just spanking. Like, we really do not spank our kids a lot. Like, I can't even recall the last time we actually spanked our kids. But we still have discipline. We still have punishment. So that punishment may be in the form of, okay, you know what? You're going to take a break. You know what? You're not going to watch TV. You know what? You're going to have to do this. But we also have to reinforce the why. We have to doubly reinforce the why they are under this punishment or why they're under this discipline. Otherwise, it kind of goes by the wayside. So we explain the why, we have them say the why, and then again, after the punishment happens, we have them explain the why they went through that punishment. Because otherwise, again, like you said, you get that wooden spoon, they associate the spoon, that's the thing that's negative, as opposed to the action. So you're really trying to teach the child not to do a specific action. So it's about them learning and understanding why they should not do that action. So
yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to share that for people who are parenting. I'm a lot older than you are. I may not live it.
Not
Thank
really.
God.
I think that's close,
I'm
right?
probably at least 20 years older than you, at least. And I shared that experience because even in my experience, my child is 31 years old. So going back to when, that's years ago, the parenting and the spanking and what you're saying. So I hope parents start to look at things disciplined differently. And also, especially if you have multiple children, you can't discipline the same way. I only have one child, so I discipline the same. So you were talking about that. But one of the things I do want to talk about also is autism. I want to share my experience with autism. My doctoral degree is in educational leadership. I was hired by a university to be a dissertation chair. I was given this young man to, he was a doctoral candidate, and I was supposed to walk him through the process of developing his dissertation and that process of, getting his doctorate. Long story short, I kept saying, gosh, I'm telling him these things. I'm explaining, he's not getting it. What's going on? It was frustrating, but I was still calm with it. And so he said to me, I need to explain something to you. He says, I have autism. He said, you have no idea how difficult it is for me to understand, to focus, to hear you. He said, I am literally in a dark room. I'm laying on the floor on my back and my legs are up on the wall so that I said, so you're not taking notes or anything? He says, no. Well, that showed me that he's not going to retain everything that I'm saying because he's not writing it down. That's first and foremost. So there's going to be a repetitiveness. I had to learn differently to adjust to him and deliver differently. And he had to be, if things had to be repeated. I noticed he wasn't remembering things, or he remembered so much at times. And so I had to adjust. And I wasn't qualified to teach anybody with autism. And I actually was kind of upset with the university for not disclosing that, because I would have declined because I don't know how to serve that population. And they should have given someone with more experience or someone with that understanding. And honestly, maybe they should have been some type of different admission or something where they could have disclosed that so we can better serve him. Long story, he actually requested a different chairperson. Broke my heart because I believe in serving in excellence. And my boss, so to speak, said, well, I don't know why he asked for a new chair, because you told him everything correctly. You did everything on time. You responded. And I said, you know what? He told me he was autistic. I couldn't serve him. So I understood that. Let's move forward a little bit. I actually reached out to him maybe a few weeks ago because he had written a book. And I actually apologized to him that I wasn't qualified. And I was so proud of him being able to get his doctorate degree. So that was my experience. And we have to be careful with dealing with people with special needs, trying to get them to fit or conform to our normalcy, trying to cure them, trying to fix them.
Exactly.
And not just them, but anything that's different. We're looking at autistic people or people with autism, and even people who don't have the same skin color, people who have different sexual preferences, whatever. We're all trying to make everybody the same, believe the same religion, fit in. We're all different. And so I appreciate you sharing, so much about, your journey and your family. Anything else you want to share with our people to encourage them to register for this summit?
Yeah, I think sometimes you just have to step out of that box. And, I think there's a lot of good speakers here. I think there's a lot to be gained. Whether you agree with my message or not, there's still some information that I feel like people will gain, and from the other speakers as well. I just really want to encourage some people to step out of that box, step out of that little safe zone to see and get something. Because sometimes you may end up receiving a benefit or a blessing or a gift that you don't even expect. You may get some knowledge, some unexpected knowledge that you wasn't expecting to get, if anything, maybe you come into this thing learning about autism. And it's like, okay, well, I didn't know that about autism, or probably didn't even know what autism was. But you just gain some knowledge about what autism is. And you may even be able to recognize people who have autism just from that and be able to help them out in a way that's going to be substantially beneficial to not only you or, the whole government, the whole world. So I would really encourage people to really come and take part of this.
Good. Thank you. And yes, so this is Dr. Monica. I encourage men and women to register for this summit. Go over to drmonicajackson.com/M4 Summit, because this is an event for not only men to voice their truths, their trials, their triumphs, but for women to hear from the men directly what they feel, what they've gone through, the unrealistic expectations that we've placed on men, and this fairy tale that we have come to somehow think life is supposed to be. So I encourage you to register, because I'm learning from all these men. I thank you, Dontá. I thank everyone for their willingness to speak and to share. So thank you.
Thank you. Awesome, Dr. Jackson. Appreciate it.